Alright, so it's Sunday night. It's like creeping up on 2 in the morning. But I gotta do this. And a piece of me really hates it. I'm going to talk about Deuteronomy 32, specifically 32:25. And I don't understand. I don't under- I don't understand why it's my job to say this. I can theorize. I'm the most unworthy messenger. Deuteronomy 32. 32:25. Part of the reason it's not just my job, and it's not my only job. Part of the reason why this is part of my job is because I understand enough. I'm not that far gone. But I'm far along enough the way to get it. But I'm not so far gone that I'm that. $32.25. Deuteronomy. The sword without, and terror within. What are we talking about? Within the house, without the house. $32.25. The sword without. When you leave your house. Butchery. And terror within. Within the house. The terror amongst the family. There are other ways to interpret that. among being in a foreign, without being in a foreign land among the foreigners, the sword. Being in your homeland when the foreigners invade, the sword. Being within the house. We only hurt the ones we love. The terror of our own mothers and brothers, and sisters and fathers upon us. This relates back to the snake. And the euphemism of the snake. The sword without and the terror within shall destroy both the young man and the virgin. The young man and the virgin are destroyed by the sword without and the terror within, inside and outside the house. Now in the King James Version it says, the suckling. The infant. Also with the man of gray hairs. The suckling, the nursing. The sword without, the terror within, shall destroy both the young man and the virgin. The nursing child also with the man of gray hairs. What would a chuck, what is it, what would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? What would a ling, what would a suck if a suckling sucked? It's not irrelevant to the age. It's not irrelevant. It's central. It's crucial. I feel really bad talking about a lot of the things that I've been talking about lately. Especially because, you know, I really, in the last few days, you know, I'm trying to make this whole vegan cross type of thing. Though today, I came up with a new word. Well, I'm not saying it's the be-all end-all, but the vegan cross. I'm working on the vegan cross. And I've expressed before that I'm uncomfortable with calling it the vegan cross because I don't like the word vegan. Never mind how we make the distinction. It's one of those ways that words lie. It's just like intersex. Like, I'm all for the idea of liberating intersexuality, but I hate the word. hermaphrodites, as it turns out, is a better word. But like veganism, I hate that word, and I hate how it's distinguished from vegetarianism, and I hate how vegetarianism, which says it plain as day, veg- vegetables, vegetarianism, is associated with eating dairy, eggs, sometimes fish. And then, so to distinguish from that, because eggs eggs are vegetables, eggs are vegetarian, cheese is vegetarian. What? It's a problem with the words. It's one of those last ditch efforts of the enemy. Specifically, it's just like how all the advancements, and it's praiseworthy, all the advancements of like the gay lesbian community and so on. But don't mistake the great crime of this day is that hermaphrodites and women are still being kept down. So I saw this thing on my YouTube feed the other day where it was talking about, it was like some great thing about how a transgender person, weightlifting person, was going to be in the Olympics. So obviously it's like a natal man, as they call it today. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing with terms on a philosophical level. On a social level, I agree with it completely. And I agree. See, this is the thing. Because there's all these trans people, man, woman, all this. Which comes up into a separate obsession of mine lately, which has been the whole idea of like my mother's eggs, your mother's eggs, every mother's eggs were formed in her mother's womb. So if we believe at all in any kind of Lamarckism, or consider it whatsoever, unfortunately we discount as a society Lamarckism altogether, and we wholesale buy into a naive notion of Darwinism. When in The Origin of Species, Darwin flat out says, front and center, like first couple sentences, paragraphs, like, don't think I'm saying what you think I'm saying. What do you think he's saying? What am I saying? But if we consider Lamarckism even just a little bit, in the sense that we're incepted as an egg and a sperm. It's my father's sperm and my mother's egg. However, my mother's egg was formed inside my mother while she was in my grandmother's womb. So in a sense, my egg half was really formed in a Lamarckian sense within my grandmother. So I'm incepted within my grandmother and my father, not my mother and my father. Mothers are carriers, mothers are incubators, mothers are vessels. Yet we come from our grandmother, our maternal grandmother, and our father. So from a Lamarckian standpoint, like my mom was born in like 58 and she was conceived either late 57, early 58. And I was conceived 77. So, like, from a Lamarckian standpoint, the information of my grandmother's world, my maternal grandmother's world in the late 50s, that's half of me. In my father's world from the late 70s, that's half of me. So, eternally, I didn't exist till that moment. And there's a 20-year gap between the halves of me, yet I only came to be at a moment. So that 20 years gap exists within eternity. Where else could it exist? And mothers are incubators. I've been obsessed with this idea. I periodically become obsessed with this idea. Today I worked. I'm trying to work out a pattern for it, and I can't get it. This is some of it. This is some of it. This is some of it. I'm trying to come up with this pattern. But basically, I can't run away from the Russian doll aspect of, like, every woman. Let's consider woman as being mother. Let's consider man as being father. And it's interesting, when I made this diagram, I used M's and F's, which typically stands for male and female, but I was using it as mother and father. But what I came to, like, at a very crude level, is that, like, every woman, if we consider every woman a mother, and every man, if we consider every man a father, like, every woman is a continuous, like, all women exist as Russian dolls. Every man exists as, like, every woman is a Russian doll all the way back to the first woman. Every man is a Russian doll all the way back to the first woman. Every woman who's a mother continues that Russian doll, that wave. But every man goes back to the beginning and makes a split. Every man is a split in the wave. Every man is a particle condensed from the wave that reinforms the wave. And every woman is informed by the wave. Or every woman is informed by the split, by the prior splits of the wave, yet is still the wave. And I've been trying to work that out, especially with age. And I've been thinking about the way in which typically it's older men and younger women. So it seems to me that not only are, and I did a very crude mathematical working out of it, and it did, as it so happens, collapse upon Fibonacci numbers, kind of to my chagrin. I don't love Fibonacci numbers as much as a lot of people do, but at a very, and I made mistakes too, but it seems as though the number of generations back, like if I had a woman sitting beside me here today who was my wife, on average, that woman is one Fibonacci's number ahead of me. And as time goes on, from the beginning of the Cambrian explosion, from there to now, like as time goes on, because if you add 1 plus 2 and get 3, and then 3 plus 2 and get 5, it's one of those things that, like, as time goes on, you seem to be getting closer together, yet the gap between you increases. So yeah, obviously I've not made sense of it, except for that women wholesale, women who are mothers, are a continuous Russian doll wave, and men are an interruption of the wave that reinforms the wave. I accidentally turned to this page, but man. Exodus 6:30. And Moses said before the Lord, Behold, I am of uncircumcised lips, and how shall Pharaoh hearken unto me? Exodus 7:1. Uncircumcised lips. Big lips. Ethiopian, Nubian. Uncircumcised. Ding dong. Lips. Virginia. Hermaphrodite. Akhenaten. Nefertiti. They say in the Bible, Moses had an Ethiopian wife. For all practical purposes, Moses' Ethiopian wife is Nefertiti. 7:1. And the Lord said unto Moses, See, I have made thee a god to Pharaoh, and Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet. Thou shalt speak all that I command thee, and Aaron thy brother shall speak unto Pharaoh, that he send the children of Israel out of his land. 3. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt. Which also questions, like, what the fuck, man? Because Moses was supposed to go to Pharaoh and be like, let us go. And God's like, nope. Whoever this God is. Nope. I'm going to harden Pharaoh's heart, and he's going to say no. And then I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill his people. I'm going to kill his firstborns. I'm going to do all this killing. Butchers. But anyway, 32:25. I'm going to chill for a minute because I lost my train of thought. One of the things I've recognized lately is when you search things, when you ask questions of the Bible, people think you can find everything on Google, but you can't. Sometimes you just gotta, like, get into it. Like, I guess my suggestion for people like me is listen to an audio. If you can't read the Bible, if you're not like super good at reading or have a great attention span, or if you're like me, it's not that I have a bad attention span. It's that I'll read a couple sentences and then it's like something something goes off in my mind, and it's like, whoa. If I read a few paragraphs, if I read a verse, couple verses of the Bible, couple pages, eventually, and it won't take too long before I get on something that just, and then I'm off there, you know. But when I'm at work, if I'm listening to the audio Bible, I just let it go, and it's like, I'll try to take a note here or there. I might write it on paper, I might type it on my phone in a little note, but like, more things get lost. So the way I'm able to more remember things is like repetition. I keep listening, especially to sometimes you hear something, it's like, so I'll listen to it over and 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 over again. It's like, I've been listening to a lot of the Christine Hayes Yale open course lectures, and like in lecture 7, 10 minutes 06, I just keep listening to that part over and over and over and over and over again. But like, if you split the difference between Christine Hayes of Yale and Bobby Hemmett of Bobby Hemmett, if you split that difference, that's where it's at. And I'll leave it at that, I think. There's a lot more I thought I might say. So let me give it a second. I'm deleting things in my mind right and left of what I'm going to talk about. I'll try to get back to 32:25 Deuteronomy. It's also worth noting, that like the last several chapters of Deuteronomy like strike a totally different tone to the entire everything that's attributed to Moses. Like those last few chapters are like kind of something different. And just referring to my previous video, which is almost inaudible, but you can almost kind of work it out. Joshua 15 is where it's referenced. Joshua 15 is where it's referenced that Goshen is like part of the mountains. And Goshen is where they say Moses hung out. And that it's associated with the delta of the Nile. But it's like at the opposite end of the Nile from where the mountains are. So basically my number one concern is the vegan cross. That will be what unlocks the revelation, the apocalypse. It's the vegan cross. My second concern, which is tied for first place, but there's a reason why it's second, and I'll get there later. My second concern is the whole like Ethiopian according to Greece, African according to Rome, Nubian, Kush, Kemet story. Specifically lately, the basically that Moses is more or less Akhenaten. The 18th dynasty. That Ramses is slightly like misassociated because it doesn't say Ramsey 1 or Ramsey 2. It's a general or generic term. Also, the Akhenaten's father was Amenhotep III. Moses' father was Ram, Ra, Ram, Am, and Hopet, Amen, Hotep, Amun Ra, Amhotep, Amun Ra, Ram. The 18th dynasty, Mos, Thut, Moses, Ramoses. You just can't get away from it. But it's stretched all up and down the Nile. And in the Bible, according to the numbers they're talking, it was about half the population of Egypt that left. The only thing that could possibly correspond to that in history is Akhenaten. So it has to be looked into, flat out, period. So that's super important, and in a sense you might want to make it number one. The reason why I make it my second priority is because, first of all, the Essenian Ethiopians would have made the vegan cross, veganism, not slaying animals, their number one priority. So though I want to recognize the whole Ethiopian, African, Kush, Nubian, super Saharan story, they would want to focus on the vegan story. If we get the vegan story right, we'll wrap up that whole fucking... And it's not because... Dude, I'm just into the truth. I just want the fucking truth. And the truth's pointing that way. So that's where I'm going. I'm not trying to culture signal. I grew up in white bread America. I get all that racist shit fucking programmed in here. I'm fighting it with everything I fucking got. But we're all fucking racist. Not just whites. Not just blacks. Not just... But it's not racism. It's othering. If it were only white people in the world, we would find ways to hate each other, and living in a white area where it's mostly white people, not just, but enough so. At least my life, my upbringing, is enough so white that, trust me, we find plenty of ways to hate each other without race. And I know it goes for other races. You can read it in the books. But I'm interested in the truth. If we get the vegan shit right, I've come up with a new name, Flora. I've been talking about it nonstop lately, the vegan cross. So I'm trying to come up with a new symbol. Flora. The floral cross, an F. My first attempt was this. Maybe you can figure out why I thought that was a bad idea. Because vegan is like, it's a cop-out. Vegetarian is vegetarian, flat out, man. But it still sounds bad. Vegan sounds kind of bad. And vegetarian sounds kind of bad. It's that whole veg. Fuck that shit, man. Flora. Then I thought, well, floral, then it sounds too much like flowers. And if you say floritarian, it's like too many syllables. And if you say Florentine, well, then it makes it seem like Florence, you know? I traveled to Europe when I was in high school. Florence was my least favorite place I went. I was only there for like part of a day, and I hated it. I hated Florence. Loved Venice. Rome was okay. Hated Florence. So I will never call anything Florentine, despite my appreciation for Michelangelo. But that's just how it goes. I love Michelangelo, and I'm probably a lot more like him in temperament without the skill. But I aspire a little bit more to Raphael, though it's tough to say. Because Raphael made the beauty, Michelangelo made the gravity. But yet, Michelangelo was more ascetic. And Raphael supposedly died from, like, humping. So, pick your poison. But yeah, if we get the veganism right, so to speak, the florin, it still doesn't sound right. The fluoride, the fluorine. Yeah. If we get the veganism right, the Ethiopian stuff will work itself out. But if we just focus on the Ethiopianism without the veganism of the Essene, referring not only to the Gospel of the Essenes, which is only come up over the last couple hundred years, and which is quite disputed, but if we go back to Josephus, which is quite a bit closer, then that starts to push us back to Moses' wife. But anyway, if we just start with the Ethiopian message, we might lose the vegan message. The vegan message must come first, because that's what the Essenian Ethiopians, and not just the Christian Essenians, but the old school, back when old was old, before that, old school, shit that weren't in the Bible, before that shit. Garden of Eden, bro. Galapagos Islands. We're here to model eating after respiration. Reciprocity. I wish I'd said less worse and more better, but have a good day.